Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing Akibael in the 15-minute pool on ICC. I've decided to play d4 this game, and wow, we're going to get a Budapest Gambit. The critical line against this is definitely taking on e5, so I will play that. Okay, this is called the Fajarowicz Variation. I might be butchering that pronunciation, but yeah, knight e4 is interesting compared to knight g4, which is what most Budapest players play. I have to remember what to do against this. This is a rather trappy line. I think I'll start with knight f3 because this is a standard move. Now, I seem to remember something about a3 on move 5, which is the very next move. So I might play that. I could also think about playing queen c2 to attack the knight, but I'm not sure about that move. Queen c2 would probably be met by d5, I'm guessing. But if I take en passant, he takes to the knight. I don't know if they have compensation there, but a3 is a good move all around, which is why I'm leaning towards playing it. Queen c2 also, though. Trying to remember my theory. This is not a line I've looked at hardly at all, and certainly not recently. So if queen c2... I mean, if I could get the knight to back off to c5, that would be great. So I think queen c2 will almost certainly be met by d5, intending pawn takes d5, queen takes d5, defending the knight. So my thinking is queen c2, d5, e takes d6, en passant. Do they have anything better than knight takes d6 there? Because if they have to play knight takes d6, I don't know, that looks okay for me. Although bishop f5 is coming pretty quickly. You know, that's complicated, and I think I'll just play a3 because I like the idea of controlling the b4 square. I think in almost any line, I want b4 controlled. So, yeah, now d6. Okay, so if queen c2 at this point, bishop f5 is going to happen. What then? So queen c2, bishop f5. And there's all sorts of discovered attack possibilities involving knight g3. But I somehow seem to remember that this is the move, queen c2. This is always a hard situation in a chess game when you're faced with the decision, and this has happened many times on my channel, like my instincts say to play a certain move based on my past experience, but it's kind of hazy. I don't know the specifics of why that move would be played. So that always puts you in a tough spot, and I believe most of the time, unless you understand why you're making that move, you shouldn't make the move. It's not good enough to say, well, I know normally in this line this happens. That can be okay in some positions, but in a sharp position, such as this, I don't think that's solid enough reasoning. So if I take the pawn and they play bishop takes d6, I assume they get pretty decent compensation out of that. But then again, let's take a look. I mean, pawn takes d6, bishop takes d6, knight bd2 seems normal. If they trade, I can take with my bishop. They might have some compensation there. But then again, my position is very safe. So pawn takes d6, bishop takes d6, knight bd2. Let's say bishop f5, maybe g3. g3 just to prepare to fianchetto. I'm going to take this pawn. And we'll see if they get compensation for it, but as of now, I don't see anything wrong with taking it. And then following with knight bd2. So knight bd2, there's no tricks with knight takes f2 check that I see. I don't think that works. So let's go ahead and do it. I'm expecting either bishop f5 or maybe taking. They play bishop f5. They're playing very quickly too, so this could be some cause for concern. I think g3 is probably what I should play. Or take first on e4 and then g3. If I take first on e4, then g3, queen e7 would be a good move, threatening to take my knight. So bishop g2 then, castle's queenside. Let's say queen b3. I think it's okay. It's not a bad position. Let's take. We'll just capture. I've barely had a chance to look at akibael or who they are. I still won't do that until I get a little bit better developed. E3 is certainly possible, but G3 seems like a safer option. It's very nice that they can't use the B4 square. I mean, I'm kind of psyched about that. So G3, Queen E7, Bishop G2, castles. Let us say Queen B3, but they could maybe do something involving Knight D4. I'm not sure how I feel about that. So what about E3 instead of G3? So E3, Queen E7, Bishop E2, castles queenside. Looks a little bit safer in that case. Then I can play Queen B3 or Queen A4. Probably Queen A4. Undoubtedly, they have some comp. I mean, they have some compensation. All right, we're going with this move, though. And Queen E7 is just a flexible way to play. Queen F6 is played. So maybe they're going to look to put the queen on G6 hereafter. What about Bishop D3 now? Trying to induce a trade. It's possible. Bishop D3. Then if we trade bishops, they castle. I can move my queen. I mean, trades are good for me right now. Trades should be favored, so I'll do that. It's playing super fast. Okay, I'm just going to check who they are. Peak rating of 22-33. Lots of 15-minute games played. Over 2,000 15-minute games with an over 2-to-1 win-to-loss ratio. So this player seems good. Their 3-minute rating is healthy, 21.89. 5-minute rating of 23.50. Tons and tons of games played at all-time controls, this player. So I don't want to get into a mouse-moving battle with them. That's pretty clear. All right, so castles. Now I want to withdraw my queen. I'm thinking Queen C2 is the safest. It also keeps an eye on the G6 square. Good chance they'll play G5. Just thrust that pawn down the board. But that's all right. I see a counter to that. If G5, I'm thinking Bishop D2, G4, and then maybe Bishop C3. Really, so they're offering exchanges now. Okay. Could play Knight D4, but what's the point of that? Knight D4 might allow Queen F5, but they'll have this pressure on the knight, so I think I should take it. I'll just take. And then maybe castles. Castles kingside, that is. Could play Bishop D2, but they'll take on B2 if I do that. So castles kingside seems like the most prudent thing to do. Let's castle short. Bishop takes H2 is not working yet. Queen G6. Wow, this is surprising. So they're just outright playing for the endgame. It's kind of fascinating that they can do that. So I guess they're saying that their control of the D file is such that they don't need to simplify necessarily. Or that they can simplify, I should say. So if I take, they get the D3 square, they have pressure against the B pawn. Assuming they take with the H pawn, bishop takes H2 check will be a threat. So I might have to play F4 to kick them back, but then my position is full of holes. Specifically rook D3 and maybe coming to B3 is annoying. So I'm thinking I might want to play E4 in this position. Just to try to back them off a little bit. E4 and then try to continue with bishop E3. Yeah, let's do that. It seems very weird to just decline the queen trade. But I'm worried that they're going to get compensation if I do trade queens. I'd rather complete my development first and then look towards a queen trade. So finally they're taking a little time, not much though. They've continued with the rapid fire play. So rook D4, I saw that move, it threatens both of these pawns. F3 or F4 would be my probable replies. So F4 kicks the bishop back, but is probably not that good. F3, what's up with F3? F3, my idea would be bishop E3 to come. So F3, they can play queen H5, let's say. Maybe G3 then. G3, so they double. I play my rook bishop to E3. Rook D3. That's annoying somewhat. f4, bishop d6 is also not so great. You know, I just have to make a decision and go with it because I'm already way down on the clock. So I'll play f3 and look to play bishop e3 on the next move. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, they're just getting the pawn back, or they're trying to get the pawn back. I can play c5. c5, keep the rook out of c4 for now. Let's do that. Again, have to pick up the pace. I just want to play bishop e3. That's the only thing I want to do in this position. It's my sole objective. So bishop e3, rook d3 is the point. And then if I were to defend the bishop, they might have rook takes e3. I think is what they're trying to say to me. What if I go rook b1 intending b4? Might be good, because I can't play b4 right away because my rook on a1 is too loose. Huh. So bishop e3, rook d3. King h1 also comes to mind. But no, I don't know. At any rate, I don't think I have the time to debate the ramifications of all these moves. I just got to do something. I got to go with a move. I still slightly feel that the onus is on him to prove compensation, but at the same time, he's doing a good job of keeping me under pressure. So king h1. Bishop e3, rook here. King h1. Let's go king h1. Hate to have to make this move. But it's maybe a necessary move at some point. I'm worried about rook d3, though. Rook d3, I'll play b4, I think, in an effort to complete development. So the reason why I'm playing king h1 is so I can go bishop e3 without fear after rook d3 of them taking on e3. I looked at the line bishop e3 when my king was on g1 just a moment ago. Bishop e3, rook d3, bishop f2, but queen h6 concerned me. I didn't like the look of that. Because then I couldn't play g3 because of rook takes f3. So at least now if I go bishop e3 and they play rook there, I can do something to defend. Okay, this hits the rook on f1, so that's a pretty big threat. I think I have to play this. I don't think there's any question about that. Now, rook e1, he might just be playing for the endgame with queen b3 to come. Rook e1. You can play queen b3, this is true. Queen e2 maybe, if I want to keep the queens on the board. The clock is a huge factor right now, though. It's a good long-term move. f4. f4, he'll just go bishop d4. Don't like my position after a4. Just how do I get out of this bind? All right, I'm playing f4. Don't see a lot of good alternatives. I think they're going to go bishop d4. And then we're just going to play h3. And just play the position. I need to create lift for my king. I might be giving the c-pawn back at some point, but decisions must be made. Tough decisions must be made. I am still up a pawn. It's just his position is very coordinated. If rook d2, I have queen c3, so Don't think that's too bad. No, he's just playing for the endgame. Rook e2. Rook d1. That's all right. Rook e2, he can take on e4. That's no good. All right, we'll just take. Get that pawn to b3, though. Might be a thorn in my side. Now he has rook c4 if he wants to go after that pawn. Let's do this. We're just playing for activity now. This is a player who's pressuring us extremely hard on the clock. All right, let's come back. I'll go rook d1 check next if I can. Yeah, they know that's coming, so. It's just basically constant pressure on the clock from them.
Check.
They're basically content to play this as a fast game. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Maybe they know I'm commenting or something, but.
Check. Check.
I don't know about this endgame. I mean, I think it's like maybe roughly equal, but it's hard to tell. Huh.
Check.
Let's do this. They have c5, though, if they want. There's one potential problem in this position. My king is a very far ways away from the action. It's an issue. Let's bring the king over for defense. Let's go here. Still want to bring my king over.
Check.
King d2. They take. All right, I need to bring the king up. Okay, let's just do this. Ooh, I maybe should have brought my king over. So now they have king b2. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Gotta do this.
Check.
Yeah, this is kind of too bad.
Check.
It's a tough position. They're just playing very quickly.
Check.
Then again, they have trouble marching. They have trouble advancing the pawn. Sorry I haven't given much in the way of commentary over the past few moves. It's just tough. Obviously, I'm way down on time, so. Okay, let's just bring this back. My g-pawn is my compensation right now.
Check.
That
Check.
much is clear. Okay, let's do this. I think this might be a draw. So their king is an awful ways away. It's awfully far. If rook d3,
Check.
I have to take on c2. Got to do this.
Check.
Yeah, this is headed for a draw.
Time.
This is a draw. Okay. Very weird game because he only spent less than 6 minutes. Yeah, my time management was pretty poor that game. I mean, I sort of think if he would have spent a little longer, like maybe in this rook end game, because this rook end game was very, very sharp and close, he might have had a chance at winning. I basically had to start blitzing like right around the time that the queens got traded. Let's take a look. It was an interesting game. I think my unfamiliarity with the line, I'm just going to put the engine on from the beginning because it was pretty sharp, so I don't know. And it got sharp quickly, so I don't know if positional considerations matter that much. But yeah, my unfamiliarity with the line caught up with me. This is just one of these lines that is probably not that bad for black. I'm sure white can get an edge with best play, but clearly he knew it much better than I did. Not sure about a3 at all. a3 is potentially just a wasted move. I thought about queen c2, but after d5, I wasn't sure about this resulting position because the b4 square is always weak. I guess he's not threatening so much to come into it now because I have queen a4 check, but somehow compensation can be achieved for him. But let's see. So a3, it's probably not the worst move in the world. I took the pawn, he took back. Knight bd2. Yeah, bishop f5. I took e3. I thought about g3 in this position. So interesting. This is a line that apparently can be played for endgame compensation. You see the top move by the computer was bishop c5, just offering a trade of queens. Because a3 does create certain weaknesses in the position. Like, yeah, it defends the b4 square, but b3 is almost permanently weakened because of that move, and with that, the c4 pawn too. So he might have a good chance to play like knight a5 and attack c4 or get into b3 later. It's very possible. It's kind of fascinating. So I played e3 in this position. I thought briefly about bishop g5. I thought he would just play f6 if I were to do that. So bishop g5, f6, bishop moves somewhere. And again, he can play queen e7 and maintain the option of castling queenside. So e3, bishop, queen f6. I played bishop d3, just trying to trade. And then castles. I have to get out of the way of discovered attacks because bishop b4 check is a threat with a discovered attack on my queen. If I were to castle, I would just lose my queen to bishop takes h2. That's game over. So after castles, I must spend a tempo with my queen, withdrawing it to avoid those discovered attacks. And then knight e5, yeah, so he pursues a policy of ruthless simplification. Queen g6. This move surprised me too. So, but I think if I take here, I bet he has great compensation. Yeah, the computer thinks he's better. I have to deal with this attack on the h2 pawn, so let's say g3 or h3. Let's say h3. I mean, even if he plays just like rook d3 here, it's very hard for me to move. I can't develop my bishop. There's pressure on b2. This rook can come over to b3, as he utilized in the game. Utilized that weak square. So it's not easy. That's why I played e4. He went rook d4. I played f3. Potentially this move is bad. I didn't like f4 because I thought my pawns were getting overextended if I played that. I thought he would play bishop d6. I guess I have c5 in that case. Bishop e7, rook e1, keeping a small edge. Even here, I'm up one pawn, but the computer's registering less than 2/10 of a pawn advantage, or was. That tells you that black has some very legitimate compensation. So f3, queen c6, c5. Yeah, and honestly, I think given the time differential and the difficulties I experienced with my position, despite being up a pawn, I think a draw is a good result from this position. I mean, I think I was fortunate to escape with that. One of the problems I have is that this bishop e3 move is always met by rook d3, and when my king is on g1 and this diagonal is so easily exploited by him with an exchange sacrifice on e3, so for instance rook e1, rook takes e3, take, bishop d4, I don't know that I can consolidate without giving the pawn back. So I had to waste time playing a move like king h1. Yeah, the computer doesn't find anything great for white either. King h1 seems as good as anything else the computer was suggesting. Queen b5, bishop e3, rook here. Queen d3 is also a good move. Okay, playing for an endgame. Yep, f4. I have to kick his bishop back. I can't afford to have it stay on that square for much longer. Take, rook takes, h3. At this point, I've resigned myself to the fact that I will probably lose a pawn back, and I'm just trying to gear up for proper counterplay in the endgame. Queen b3 is a fine decision, I think. I mean, maybe he could keep more pieces on the board. You know, like rook d2 was possible. I was going to play queen c3, which is essentially an offer of a draw because of here. I don't have anything better than repeating with queen c2. But yeah, he played queen b3. We traded. I thought a takes b3 was more testing. This would be a very irritating pawn to deal with for the rest of the game. I would have definitely played that if I were black. I think rook takes b3 might be letting me off light. Because now at least this pawn has to stick on a4, and I don't know, it doesn't seem quite as threatening if the pawn doesn't get to b3. So rook here. Yeah, I played e5. I felt like my majority was going to be my sole source of counterplay, or my most powerful source of counterplay, because I'm kind of getting dominated on the queen side. You see how active his rooks are, and his king is operating in that vicinity. So I need counterplay with my king side majority. I see rook d1 is the engine suggestion. That might not be a bad move either. Would the idea be a take and then rook here? Yeah, maybe get some counterplay. I don't know. This is messy. Because if I make a break for his king side pawns, he might just say, you know, fine, let's do this. My pawns are faster than your pawns. Something like that. So, or I guess you'd have to respond to the attack on his rook first. Maybe a move like that. Who knows? Or here. So I tried to push my pawns. I have to admit, when I played e5, I didn't see that he could play rook takes f4. Didn't have a ton of time left, and I just assumed he was going to take on c5. And then my plan was to go f5 and try to push. But e5, he did take on f4. I played e6, take. So as I've talked about before, this game kind of reminds me of a game I played against Alex Dunn. Not the game I posted yesterday, but about a week or two ago. I think it was about a week ago. Where I was down a pawn in a rook endgame, and I managed to hold because I had active rooks. So same thing here. I have to strive for rook activity. Rook e2 is a necessity, unfortunately, to defend this pawn and also safeguard my rook. I guess I could maybe try this move, but yeah, rook f1 check forces a trade of rooks. I'd much rather keep both rooks on the board in defense here rather than one rook, as happened in the game. Because if I can keep both rooks on the board, I always have the ability to combine and threaten a perpetual or threaten more pawns. But if we reduce to a single rook endgame, as happened in the game, it's going to be a lot harder for me to defend because his king is so much more active and involved. So any simplification will highlight the difference in our king activity at this moment. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Like, he very nearly won the game with his rapid-fire technique of using, like, 1/3 of his time, basically. But I have to believe that, given how good his position is roundabout here and over the next many moves, he should have just taken some time somewhere and, you know, tried to find the win, basically. Because he had to have been close to winning. This move might be a waste of time, huh? I should just rip the pawn on a4. Yeah, and that also keeps both of the rooks on the board. Oh, that would have been a
check,
sweet opportunity. Ah, because if this check king b5, I have
check,
a4 check, forcing king a5, and then I get
check,
this move in, and I win. I win his rook. So, yeah, rook takes a4 should have been played immediately by me. I am playing essentially a bullet game, though, right now.
check,
Yeah, again, I took too long to try to win that a-pawn. Now
check.
I'm a lot worse. So
Check.
you see, this was my feared scenario, an endgame like this, because for the moment, he's basically playing up a king. And a king is a powerful force in an endgame. Doubly so if the side that you're pushing your pawns on is the side that you have your king on as well. So he wants to create a passed c-pawn. That's his ultimate goal here, and his king is well placed to assist with that goal. Yeah, I mean, it's getting rough. I mean, you see the advantage is growing. h4, rook a2 here, c5. For the moment, he's playing good moves. He's used about 4 minutes. Here. I think rushing my king over is my only defense. The only other thing I could try is, try to win 2 for 1, like give up my h-pawn and try to win 2 of his pawns over here. But given how fast his c-pawn is, I don't know that I'm going to be able to pull that off. I feel like I need my king over to try to defend, although I do think this is losing, or close to it. Rook c3 was a nice resource, just forcing him to go back with king b5. If I don't have that, he just takes on a3, and it's probably game over. So that cost him a couple tempos. Unfortunately, I have to go back, so tempo-wise, it didn't matter, I suppose, because I can't approach with my king any further because he has rook takes g2. So rook g3 here, king e1, necessary, rook b3. Trading rooks would lose.
Check.
Because if I do that, he gets his king into a4 and wins the a-pawn with a pretty trivial win. So
check.
Rook g5 check here. King d2. Yeah, maybe I should have gone for h5 directly and immediately start trying to get the 2 for 1 deal. Because now my king is a little bit closer, it can help out. Rook c5 also looks strong, huh? Why is that? Because it would compel him to play c3 and then here take. Yeah, and king c2. This is a scenario I saw in one of the lines that could occur here coming up, but I rejected that. Yeah, I think in this position, I have to play king c2. I have a feeling the move I did, h5 should lose after king b2, because now his king is well protected, and he just has a straight shot to promotion with the c-pawn. Yeah, h5 was sloppy. So with my minute 13 remaining, I should have had the wherewithal to play king c2 and get in front of the pawn, because h5 can wait. It can wait for one more move. All right, so let's look at this position. Because, yeah, I don't even have time to take this pawn because of c3 check. I move my king somewhere here. And notice the difference after this. Not only is my king a lot less active, he could even play the move rook c3 if he wants. If he doesn't want to get into any king and rook versus king and pawn battle, which would have been winning for him, but he could even do this and then block my attempt to sacrifice my rook for the c-pawn. So I couldn't take on g6. I saw that. So I went here.
Check.
He did that. Okay, so yeah,
check.
c3. What's wrong with that? I do have king d1 to control c2, but he can just go here or somewhere and threaten this. Yeah, I guess rook b6 is even cleaner, just to keep an eye on the pawn and still threaten rook d6. And yeah, it's just it's a Lucina position almost. Not even a Lucina position. He doesn't even have to put his king in front of the pawn. I have no defense. I just wait with my rook. He goes check.
Check.
King over. c2. I guess in this
check.
case it could be a Lucina. King c1. Yeah, and I don't have nearly enough counterplay. I haven't even won his g-pawn yet. So I guess an even cleaner way to win. This would be a win just based on him playing, like one plan is rook a6, rook a1, rook b1. And then after I move my rook, king b2, promote the pawn. So for instance, let's say we follow the engine line. Rook here, pretty sure this should be winning. Let's say g5 here. Let's just say white waits, or Maybe goes after this pawn. Yeah, like something like this. Rook takes g6, and maybe here. And then the king can come over and promote, and black is keeping an eye on this pawn. That should win. Like king here, let's say king b2. We're threatening to promote, so rook c6 is forced. And now if he wants to be clean, rook takes g5. And here we would get to a Lucena position, interestingly enough. Check. King c3, threatening to promote. Check.
Check.
Let's say king b3 or king d3, doesn't matter. And now if he continues checking, black zigzags the king and eventually blocks the rook.
Check.
White's king is too far away after a subsequent rook trade. By the way, in the Lucena position, if you get here and the defending side does not check, let's say instead they play, I don't know, some waiting move with the king, like king f2, you might have to build a bridge manually by playing like this move, and then bringing the rook over to c4 to block. So that's one way of potentially playing. Yeah, and if the king approaches, might require some accuracy, but like a move like rook g1 should win. Threatening to promote. Here, check. Followed by promotion. So, but even still, earlier, there's probably even easier ways for black to win. Like after rook b1, rook takes g6. Probably just this move also works. Yeah, this would be fine. Say check. King a3. Yeah. And if here, promote, take, king here. Aha, and then black can play rook c4. And notice that the king and the pawn are too far away from each other. The king is not able to cross the 4th rank threshold in order to assist the pawn. And if ever this pawn is pushed, now there's 2 files of distance in between the king and the pawn. So black has the immediate rook c6, which corrals the pawn, winning. So I went into some rook endgame stuff there, but basically, like this would be a good moment for him to reassess. I don't know if rook d3 like throws away the win necessarily, but he played that in 3 seconds. And c3 check is probably just easily winning. And none of those lines was White ever really close to drawing. So
check.
Yeah, he might have tossed away the win there. Still though, even here, I'm struggling to defend. Here, rook c6. Now I have to win his g-pawn in order to hold this, because I can't stop the c-pawn with my king cut off. My rook alone is not going to defend against his rook, king, and pawn. So it's imperative that I win the g-pawn, so we get into a race situation with my king and pawn versus his king and rook after I give up my rook for the c-pawn. It's interesting. It looks like I'm losing even here. Yeah, I don't believe a move like rook a6 will hold, as the computer is suggesting.
Check.
Tried to go after his g3 pawn.
Check.
Yeah, he went king b3. That move might have been the one to do it. Rook d2 is better. Okay. Tying me to the g-pawn. And then after king f3, c3, let's say I chop this pawn, c2. Now he's threatening rook d3 check followed by rook c3. That rook interference again. So I have to take. King takes. Yeah, and now I'm a lot less further along. So these scenarios happen all the time in rook endgames when you have competing passed pawns on opposite wings, where one side will have to give up the rook for the pawn and just push the king and the pawn. Actually, against that game against Post Alex that I commented on earlier, that was the scenario. I was defending a situation identical to this, actually. So my opponent had king, rook, and pawn. I had king, rook, and pawn, but his pawn was much more dangerous. I had to sack my rook for the pawn and then draw by using my advanced pawn and his king being so far away. But if he can engineer a trade when the king is closer and my pawn hasn't advanced yet or isn't far or is too far from queening, then the chances of him winning go up. Like now I have to play king f3, he can play king d3, let's say g4, king d4, king f4. The pawn can never get too far ahead of the king, or that's an easy win. And then something as simple as check will do the trick. King g5, king here. His king and rook coordinate too fast. Compared to what happened in the game, he went here, I got rook g7 in, take, still pretty nice for him. But, like, now my king wasn't forced back to f3.
Check. Check.
And I can use this valuable tempo that I have in this position. I do not yet have to sacrifice my rook for the pawn. I can use this tempo in order to play g4.
Check.
Yeah, and him giving a check didn't help. That just helped me get my king closer. He could try and move like rook d3 in this position, threatening rook c3, so that would force me to give up my rook right away. But this is also a draw, I believe. Yeah, let's say rook g3, king f5, king d3, g6, king here, king f6. My king does a good job of shouldering his king, keeping it from coming to the e5 square. I think I should just barely draw now. King d5, let's say g7. Let's say king here, here, check. And yeah, I think here probably easiest would be king e8 instead of going like king g6 or king g8. Definitely not king g8, because king g8, you're forced in front of the pawn. Allows your opponent to get back with their king in time. Yeah, and this will be a win. So, yeah, something like king f7, check. King e8 will draw, because I'm always threatening to promote. So he has to go here and here. And he's just like one tempo behind where he needs to be. If the king were on d7, he could give a check. Actually, that's probably also drawn after king g6. So these scenarios come down to very precise calculation. And tempos really, really matter. So he just didn't quite have it.
Check. Check.
So I could play king g6 too. King e5 is not necessary. I just know from experience in these scenarios, like it's often good not to block your own pawn. I think king g6 should draw too. Well, maybe not. So you can go here, threatens this. I take, g5. Yeah, this is kind of the scenario I feared, where your king can like block the way for your pawn to advance. So that's why I played king e5, just kind of instinctually. Here, yeah, now if he were to play this, then I can sack.
Check.
Oh yeah, and the other reason to keep the king and pawn separated via file is to shoulder the opponent's king. So now I can advance this pawn whilst keeping his king out of the game. So I control like d4, e4 for now, so he doesn't have like a straight shot back with his king. Whereas if my king were to go to the g file, his king can take a diagonal route back much easier. So rook g8, king f5. I don't have to sack my rook yet. I can do it when his king is dragged the furthest away possible, the c1 square. Now g5. He rushes back with his king, but it's not enough. g7, yep. And here. And he gave a check, or he could give a check if he wanted.
Check.
But notice that if this and then king f8, if he were to try to go here and get fancy trying to like mate me with this, that would just lose. Like queen check would be working, queen d5 would be fine, controlling a8. That is sometimes a theme. Like if this were a rook, he would be winning. Like let's say for some unbeknownst reason I had promoted to a rook in this position, then he could do check. And if I were to play king f8, then king f6, and he would be winning. So, of course, I would never promote to a rook there, so yeah, draw. Well, that was a fascinating rook endgame. I really feel akibael could have probably won it if he had spent more time, but yeah, I mean, he just didn't spend enough time down the stretch to really turn the screws, and I escaped. So, hope you guys enjoyed that one. I'll be back tomorrow with another standard game. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.